Hey y'all. So this morning we are going to be feeding a starter. So this is my starter. I've had this in the refrigerator since Thanksgiving. Made a bunch of bread, rolls, all kinds of stuff for Thanksgiving. And I put this to bed on Thanksgiving Day, and now we're here about 6 days later, 5 days later. And I have had this in the fridge since then. It's needing to be fed. I need to make some bread and things, and this is what I had left from Thanksgiving. So I used up all of my discard, which is going to be starter that is not at its prime. It's discarded, it's not bubbly and ready to go to make an artisan loaf, but you can use it for a lot of other things. And I like to have a big jar in the fridge. So I need to take this little bit of scrap that I have left. I'm gonna transfer into all clean jars because I like to redo my jars every week or so. It just helps to keep your starter good, keep the bad bacteria out, and it's just nice to have a clean, ready to go jar. So what we're gonna do is I have a fresh, clean jar. I prefer these wide mouth mason jars. They work the best. I feel like it's easier to scrape everything out. And the way I feed my starter, I have a third jar over here actually, is I'm going to use my scale. This is just a little scale you get from Amazon. I don't know if you can see the ounces on the camera, but we're going to measure everything in grams. So we've zeroed out our clean jar, and then I have put 20 grams of sourdough discard in this jar. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna zero our scale back out, and I'm gonna be using spring water because we live in the city and there is bleach in our water, so you can't use that to feed your starter. So I buy spring water just for this. If you're on well water, it probably would work out just fine, but I'm gonna put about 70 grams of water, spring water, or just water that is not city water, into this jar. And you can see we're gonna make this, it's gonna look like a milky water. So now that that is all stirred up, we're gonna zero our scale back out. And now I am going to take unbleached, all-purpose flour. I keep mine in this Cambro. You can use whatever you want, but I tend to buy the Costco brand flours. So it comes in a pretty big jar. This Cambro fits one bag of the Costco brand flour. And I just have been enjoying that flour. I know some people don't like it. A lot of people use King Arthur, I think is the brand. But any unbleached flour will work. If you don't have a Costco, just get unbleached flour. So now we're gonna go in, we have our milky water, that's all diluted down, and we're gonna add 70 grams of flour, unbleached flour. And actually I ended up with 77 grams of water. So we're gonna match that. It's not gonna make a difference. This is just typically, it's kind of a rough estimate. So I do 20 grams of sourdough discard, and then I usually go in with between 60 grams and 80 grams of flour. You just don't want to overfill this jar because it will bubble up and it just makes a giant mess, and I'm just not interested in cleaning that up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to mix this, and it's going to turn into kind of a thick paste consistency. And in about 7-ish to 12 hours, depending on how hot it is, this is going to be ready to use to make a bread recipe. I typically like to feed my starter, I don't know if you can see in there, at least once a week. That's the bare minimum. But a healthy starter, I do try to feed and discard at least every other day, because I make things out of my leftover starter, like I said, pizza dough and things like that. My kids really love the sourdough pizza crust, and I'll show you guys how to make that in another video. But this is gonna be my new fresh sourdough starter that is ready to bake bread. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna take my clean, I really like these ball plastic lids, and I'm just gonna do one turn, and then I'm gonna set this on my counter for the rest of the day. It's the morning time. So by this evening, I'm gonna be ready to mix a bread recipe. That'll be what I use to make rolls. This week I'm making rolls. I need to make a loaf of bread. And then I do need leftover starter because I wanna make some pizza dough, and I want one for Friday night to make pizza. And then I want one to keep in the refrigerator because my pizza crust will stay on hand for a week. And so I just have been enjoying having one on standby. It makes for a quick lunch for the kids on the weekend if we need something. This is gonna go in the sink in hot, hot water. You cannot put sourdough starter down the drain, so don't do that. This is just a little bit. I'm gonna wipe this with a paper towel. Then I'm gonna put very hot water in this, let it get completely liquidy, milky, and then it can go down the drain. But you will clog your drain if you put chunky starter down your drain. So I'm gonna get this one mixed up, but they're all gonna come out like this, and they'll all be ready probably more like 10 hours because we're getting into the colder months of the year. My house is not super hot right now. So the colder your house is, the longer your starter and your doughs are gonna take to ferment. Summertime, when it's triple digits out, this will be ready in 7 hours because it's got the heat to do that. But right now, running on about 10-hour schedule, which is perfect. I'm mixing this in the morning, and this should be ready to make a great recipe right after dinner. That's gonna be able to sit on the counter and ferment overnight. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. Y'all have a great day.